If I'm just talking to people who think like me and act like me and do the same job as me, we're just going to create a vacuum.
Yes.
And nothing is growing. And the biggest thing that we all need is creativity in our industry. And I think it can really drive growth and customer adoption and understanding and all of the great things that I think should be happening in insurance and are slowly happening. From a marketing perspective, I'm not going to get that from a whole bunch of people that are just like me.
Welcome to 5 Minutes, your quick dive into the wide-ranging world of insurance, technology, and leadership. I'm Miguel Edwards, and I'll be your guide as we explore these topics that are transforming not just the insurance industry, but the business world at large. Along with sharing observations I've made over the span of my career in insurance, technology, and operations, I'll be chatting with some of the brightest minds in business and leadership. Whether you're a seasoned executive or a rising star, an industry expert, or just curious about how technology is revolutionizing insurance, this is your perfect spot for your weekly dose of insights. This is 5 Minutes.
Andrea Collins, Chief Marketing Officer at Hippo. Thanks so much for being on 5 Minutes.
Great to meet you.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. So every interview, I always like to start with this question, because there's always usually an interesting story. Unless you planned on going to school to be an actuary, how did you get into insurance?
I did not go to school with plans to be an actuary. Although, what a great career path if you knew that early on. I, like many others, stumbled into insurance. I started off with a strong interest in fintech. I was working for several different startups externally through agencies, and then discovered insurtech as kind of an off-spin of fintech. Met some really interesting founders in the space, and ultimately started advising for and working for Policygenius, early insurtech. Saw a lot of relevancy and impact in the space, especially on the end consumer. I was particularly interested in the linkage between bankruptcy and insurance costs in the early days. Wanted education to be a big focus of the sector in the space. And ultimately, I feel like I've done that, which is great. Yeah.
Fantastic career ride. Oh, it's amazing. So, when you think about your journey, and I, kind of looking through the different stops that you've made, marketing has to have changed at some point, right?
Yeah.
The way we market to consumers has changed dramatically. Talk me through what that must have been like as a marketing professional, how you had to make those adjustments.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to focus on the insurance space and marketing within the insurance space just for the sake of time.
Yeah.
And I think when I got into marketing and insurance, I was up against a wall in the context of budgets and relevancy. So I knew that I couldn't buy a stadium with VC money. And I knew that there was an opportunity to be much more targeted and tailored in our approach. As I mentioned, education, I think, should be a center of a focus. And relaying the information that customers need, which are so often just called policyholders, right? There's customers at the end of that. Relaying that information in plain English in a way that they can understand. So a lot of what I did in the early days that I think is becoming more and more mainstay now is I got creative. So find the segment that applies to your customer set. And that shouldn't just be early adopters because you're a tech company.
Yeah.
That is, who needs your product the most? Who needs your help? Tailor your campaigns towards them, really make sure they understand that benefit. And no, it's not going to be a national stadium branding campaign. It's going to be this part or area of New York City or San Francisco or the Bay Area. And then really driving strong value through creative campaigning there.
That's fascinating. Along those lines, you've had experience with a lot of more tech-forward carriers than I have. I've kind of worked with some of the kind of old, mainstay brands, right?
Okay.
Is there a difference, especially from a product perspective and then from a marketing perspective, with respect to how some of those newer carriers are focusing on the customer versus the policy? I've always complained in my space that we're always way too policy-centric and not customer-centric.
Yeah.
Well, you said customer like 35 times in our last piece here.
Yeah.
Is there a difference with the way companies like Hippo approach marketing and product development?
Well, I think it's a bit of a luxury, to be perfectly frank, right?
Oh.
We don't have a massive book that we're starting with in the early days. And so we can say, what does the customer need and want before we actually build all of the policy requirements? So I think if you start with the customer first from day one, which again, legacy carriers can't do, they had their day one, some over 100 years ago. So I think it's a luxury that we should continue to optimize against as companies like Hippo get older, and as some companies even step further away from the end customer, right? They'll take a more B2B2C approach, which is not uncommon as insurtechs have matured. They really need to continue to focus on that. I've seen some people lose a little bit of focus there, but I do think that if we run our business like we do at Hippo, where the customer is one of our main KPIs every year, it's at the executive council meetings on a monthly basis. It is the biggest part of our consideration set when we're doing things like building products, reviewing reinsurance contracts. Everything comes down to what does the customer need and how can we serve them.
That's awesome. I want to shift a little bit, Andrea, just to more kind of general leadership. And, I kind of, again, looking at your career and this kind of trajectory that you've had, what are some of the biggest lessons that you can offer, especially I'm thinking about the new generation of leader that's coming up, and they're going to deal with a lot of the stuff that you and I have dealt with. What's some of the most important advice that you can offer from a leadership perspective coming from an executive, carrier executive?
I have a couple of mentees who keep asking me for their path, right? Help me define my path. Right. What does my next 5 years look like? And this is a little bland at start, but I can provide more detail.
Yep.
It's never a straight path, right? And I think the people that try and plot it out, and maybe aside from that group that goes to college to be actuaries and then they become actuaries, in marketing particularly, it's not going to be a straight path. Find what you're really excited about. I love seeing my impact.
Right.
I love being able to work with smart, creative people. Culture is really important to me. I didn't know any of that in the first couple of years of my career. When I figured that out, I was able to optimize and ultimately become much more valuable to my executive team, and have a stronger voice and conviction and all of those things. And that led me to where I am today.
Right.
And I think people look at my career path and they're like, oh, look at these great steps. They weren't steps at the time.
Right.
They were explorations. So I do think that it's try not to get too far over your skis.
Yep.
Try and make sure that you're just focused on what can you do in your current role? And then when you exit, what does the next role look like? Don't say it has to happen in X number of months or years and it's got to be perfect. So,
was that exploration accidental or was it orchestrated perfectly?
Oh God, it was not orchestrated perfectly at all.
Right.
It was definitely accidental.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the big things that I've leaned on, at least in the last 15 years of my career, is my network.
Yes.
Right. And there's people that were mentees a long time ago that I turn to for mentorship. Right now, I turn around and say, hey, you're younger than me and you have a fresher perspective on this one item. I really want to hear your perspective on this and please train me to start thinking like that. So I optimize to not just my network's opportunities, but where I can add value to them and they can kind of pull me in a certain direction. Usually that's where the exploration has taken me. And I mean, overall, it's worked out well for me.
Yeah.
But I think long term, these have become friends and high value contacts. But I am hoping that I've become a much more high value contact for them too.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. There's something you said in there that was so amazing where you don't hear too many, and forgive me for the term, seasoned leaders that talk about going to mentees.
Yeah.
For going to younger mentees for advice. That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it works, right? Like if I'm just talking to people who think like me and act like me and do the same job as me, we're just going to create a vacuum.
Yes.
And nothing is growing. And the biggest thing that we all need is creativity in our industry. And I think it can really drive growth and customer adoption and understanding and all of the great things that I think should be happening in insurance and are slowly happening. From a marketing perspective, I'm not going to get that from a whole bunch of people that are just like me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Andrea, I want to be respectful of your time, so I only have one last question for you. Did you learn anything during COVID?
Ooh. Aside from how to limit my son's screen time, which was not my favorite journey in the entire world.
Amen.
Well, there's two big things that pop to mind. One is how important company culture is.
Yeah.
I tell this story all the time. I was at Hippo at the time. We were taking the company public. It was a mad time. Asaf Wand, our CEO at the time, set up a Hippo school and helped put a whole bunch of the kids into a special, he opened a YMCA and put all the kids into a YMCA. That was company culture to me at the time, is somebody knows I can't get my job done with my current constraints at home, and you don't turn around and say, go fix it yourself. You help me find a solution. That was amazing, and that's the type of culture I continue to look for, and one of the things that brought me back to Hippo. And then from a marketing standpoint, I do think that there was a lot of really great learnings about where and how you reach people, right? I think that people are, especially in insurance marketing, people are following a playbook. And I love, again, creativity. I love breaking that playbook down, and COVID helped me do that a lot. There's new types of ads out there. There's new ways to speak to your customers. There's new venues that they're exploring and reaching out to. And it's not just social media, right? There's a lot of opportunities. So the way I build campaigns is very different these days too.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's 5 o'clock. Do you have question time for one more, or you got to go?
Sure.
Okay.
I knew one more.
So, we're at InsurTech New York.
Yeah.
What are you hoping to get out of your conference here?
So I can't help, but I have to start with a plug because I'm a marketer. So I'm speaking tomorrow on customer experience and some of the constraints of delivering your promises to the customer. And we have a chief legal officer on the panel as well. So I'm really excited about that customers coming up to the top. I'm glad you hit on that too. And that we're really going to be able to focus on that in some of these panels. But holistically, in terms of kind of who I'm meeting here and what I'm gaining out of the experience overall, this community is my community.
Yeah.
Like, this is a lot of my folks in my network. These are the people I just love to run up and hug and ask about their kids. So it's a lot of just reconnecting with folks for me.
Love that. That's exactly right. And I'm so glad, by the way, because we're just talking about COVID, that all this came back.
I know.
Because this was
Great
missing
point.
for so long,
Totally.
right? So it's so good to be back. Awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Andrea Collins,
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you for joining this episode of 5 Minutes. If you've enjoyed our discussion, we'd love for you to share it with anyone else you think might find it interesting. Also, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening on and hit that bell to stay on top of the game with our practical 5-minute episodes. We look forward to seeing you again next week.